if you're not gonna like give something to people that you think that they would love, like if you're gonna start off thinking I'm gonna give as little as possible, right?
Right,
Then
right,
you're probably not gonna become that big product that everybody loves and everybody wants to have. And
right,
so, but when you start to reduce that, even if it was your plan all along, and probably a lot of companies these days, it is the plan all along, but whether it is or isn't, people are still kind of expecting that this is now the product. This is what it's going to be. And
right,
so you can't be surprised when you suddenly start downsizing on everything and making things not as nice, that people are going to start leaving you in the dust, right? They're just going to
right.
ignore you.
Welcome to another episode of the Bloomburg Democrat. I'm Sally Taylor. This is my discerning younger brother, John Daniels. We are here today to talk about a not uncommon phenomena. In fact, I would say it's almost ubiquitous these days.
Yeah. It's,
Phenomena of sh- uh, shrinkification, or the term
mhm.
that John introduced me to was enshittification.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I read that this was voted the word of the year in Australia by a dictionary company. And
really,
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's not just me.
it's worldwide.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yes. This is something everyone is picking up on these days.
So tell me a few things. My husband and I talk about this particular topic actually quite frequently because we look at the
Yeah.
products that we've been buying. But tell me a few things that you've noticed a big change in, John.
Well, so for me, I think Snickers were one of the things that I first started to notice that the Snickers bar keeps getting shorter and shorter, and the price keeps going up and up.
Mhm.
And candy bars in general, I think were pretty early to jump on the enshittification bandwagon. But it's not just that either. It's I mean like enshittification is generally used for services, specifically web services like Facebook or Twitter or whatever, and how it started off as this one thing, and then it changed and it changed and it changed, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And I've noticed the same thing is happening with like Windows, the OS, right? The operating system for your computer. Like the earlier versions of Windows, they were a bit more technical, but that allowed you to kind of, modify things a bit more. And then they started to hide the technical things. It wasn't just like a two-click operation to get to the control panel anymore. They're starting to hide it. And then they made the control panel itself easier to find, but then the things that are typically found in control panel all got harder to find. And now you have to have online accounts to use Windows, and you have to download applications from the Windows Store, which is what Apple kind of started with the whole iTunes Store and getting all your apps from there. These walled gardens are just it's complete enshittification.
Yeah. You're taking this actually in a direction I hadn't thought about because, it used to be you could buy software. Now you have to
Yes,
subscribe to it
exactly.
so
And
that
it's
you're
gotten
having to.
worse, right?
Yes, yes. Because I use like the Adobe suite
Yeah,
for several things.
yeah. And the
And
prices have gone up, 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 and up. Like
right,
the when you could just buy the things outright, you would pay like, I don't know, maybe $800 for Photoshop or something, right? But now you have to have a subscription, and it's a $600 or $700 a
a
year,
year. Yeah.
yeah, subscription at this point. And
Yeah.
so it's arguably much worse. And you no longer have the option of saying, well, I like this version that I bought, and this is what I'm going to use. Like when you have a online subscription service, they upgrade your software whether you want to or not, right? It's not an option for you. And so things can change. And This is something that's also been going on with the IoT, right? The Internet of Things, all these little smart devices for your home. And then the company decides that they don't want to service or support these things anymore, no more updates, and for that matter, you just can't even log into your online account anymore. It's gone. And then your device stops working, right? And this is completely unnecessary. This doesn't need to be happening. Like, why can't they go with an open source server if it absolutely needs a server? Or why don't they just make it so that it works in offline mode instead? And but they don't tend to do this. You just tend to lose your everything.
Right. And I have had that happen with some software that I have used in the past as well. I mean, not, I know you're talking about more hardware items, but it also goes over to things like software
Oh,
where
it
they
definitely does.
just
Yes.
decide that, okay, we're no longer supporting this. And then there's new
Right.
operating systems that it won't run on. And, you're
Right.
forced to purchase over and over and over again.
Exactly.
Um, and of course, you're the technology guy here. So those are the things that you notice very
Yes, yes, yes.
frequently.
Exactly.
But it happens in so many other ways
It
as well.
does in every single way possible these days.
Yeah.
Like airline companies, like now you have to pay for every single little thing,
Yeah.
right? Uh,
Right.
you want a bottle of water and you got to pay for it, or
Right.
you want to have a carry-on bag. Well, now they'll either force you to check it against your will, or they'll charge you extra for it or whatever.
Right.
And
And they'll force you to check it and also charge you when they
yeah,
forced you to check it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's
I've heard there's even a kickback for some uh,
yes, yes.
airline workers if they can get more bags checked. They'll
Yes,
actually get a
I've read that
bonus.
a lot of airlines are doing that these days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we know that commonly services get reduced, amounts
Mhm.
of product get reduced. What are some other forms? Quality of materials is another
Yeah.
form of enshittification I've kind of been looking at lately. And
Oh,
that's a
yes.
really common thing I've noticed. Like I have cats. I buy them
Yeah.
canned cat food because it's a little healthier for like they also get dry stuff, but I buy them the canned stuff as well because it's a little healthier. And we have noticed that the actual amount of cat food in the can
Yeah.
has not only been reduced, but there's more water in it now.
Uh-huh.
So just diluting things is
Yeah.
one way
Yeah.
that companies are taking product out of what they're selling and
Yeah.
just adding more water
Yeah,
um
exactly.
or
There's
more
things
packaging.
things everywhere are just getting worse. And it's just because they're trying to extract the maximum amount of profit that people will put up with. But I find that it's not just that they're just saying, okay, well, we're going to charge this new thing, this new price for our product, and they just tell everybody. It's always kind of underhanded. Like they try to sneak it in and they try to desensitize people to it, right?
Yeah.
This is the desensitization of people is a very important part of this, right? They want you to you might feel a little bit upset at first, but you get used to it and then you accept it and then that's the norm. And then when they decide to do the same thing again because they just need more money, then you go through the same process all over again, right? And at this rate, Snickers, you're going to be paying full price for the fun size, right?
Right. Yeah.
You should be getting
So
a whole bag full, but you're not. You're going to get one.
I recognize that greed is a portion of it, but also rising cost is a portion
Yes.
of it.
Yes, of course. So
And so
but
they'll
that should factor into just like regular inflation, right?
yes, you would think
Mm,
because you would think that people would know the inflation is the force behind
right.
the cost or
Right.
the product itself, and so they'll accept that slightly rising price. But when
Yeah.
you've got so many products competing with each other,
Yeah.
sometimes being able to fool the human brain by altering the shape of the container that something is in,
Yes.
so that
Yes.
that people don't really realize they're getting less unless they start to read the fine print
Yeah.
and
Well,
look at
the
the
did you
ounces or the ingredients.
when you talk about the like yeah, like the shapes of things, you notice the Toblerone. The Toblerones used to be these really nice big chunky things that were just barely divided into the pieces that you
Right.
can kind of manage to break this thing into. And then it just became like these thinner and thinner slices that are just like,
Bigger gaps. Yeah.
yes, much bigger gaps.
Yeah.
And now you can easily, oops, I accidentally broke all of them. Like,
Yeah.
oh, what a rip off.
So, and this is not to make excuses for the practices, but the size or the portion of products when they start out is a little bit arbitrary to begin with regard to
Mhm.
what the company people develop a product and they
Yeah,
put it in front of the public to see if it's loved or liked well enough to be purchased.
right.
And it's sort of a given that whatever that original product was is the accepted portions and it's the accepted size.
Yes, 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 yes. Because this is what people fall in love with, right?
Right. In
Yeah,
America, we supersize, right?
yeah.
Or at least
I
we
mean,
did in the past.
if you're not gonna like give something to people that you think that they would love, like if you're gonna start off thinking I'm gonna give as little as possible, right?
Right,
Then
right,
you're probably not gonna become that big product that everybody loves and everybody wants to have. And
right,
so, but when you start to reduce that, even if it was your plan all along, and probably a lot of companies these days, it is the plan all along, but whether it is or isn't, people are still kind of expecting that this is now the product. This is what it's going to be. And
right,
so you can't be surprised when you suddenly start downsizing on everything and making things not as nice, that people are going to start leaving you in the dust, right? They're just going to
right.
ignore you.
Well, and that's why I say there is a pendulum swing to this,
Yeah.
but most of it in my mind is marketing math.
Yeah.
So, John and I, my husband John and I
Mhm.
got two Johns in my life here.
Yeah.
We were talking the other day about a chicken place that we used to go to, Chicken Express, when we lived in Texas. It was
Hmm.
a fairly common chain there, and they would have, I'll get the amount wrong, but maybe they had a 3-piece finger, snack packer or something.
Right.
Well, commonly we would get 4 pieces.
Oh,
And so even if they weren't the best chicken in town, they
yeah.
were so uh generous with
Right. Right.
adding
Right.
in that extra piece of chicken that we would go, right? It
Yeah.
was like, oh, this feels like a deal. Now, chances are they're charging us for 4 pieces of chicken all along and telling
Yeah.
us
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was
Sure.
free, right? So I talk about marketing math. It's like
Right.
that was a way potentially for them to actually get and keep
Yeah.
clientele
Yeah.
because they seem to give you more than you thought you were getting.
Right. Right. Right.
Uh, and so the
Well, that's
problem is, I
clever,
think,
if nothing else.
right, exactly. Well, we used to have something called the baker's dozen, right? Which
Uh-huh.
is not
Uh-huh.
12 items. It's that extra one thrown in by the baker to
Exactly.
have a clientele that would come back.
Right.
We seem to have moved away from that marketing
Oh,
math.
yes. Yes. Yeah.
And are going about it different way. When I was growing, I don't know if you remember, but Wendy's hamburgers used to have a commercial saying,
Yeah.
"Where's the beef?" You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
old lady that would be in a drive-through, at some other
Right.
hamburger place, looking at
Right.
this hamburger with just this thin little patty, going, "Where's the beef?" And
Uh-huh.
then she would go to Wendy's and she'd get this nice, thick, juicy burger,
Of course.
and that was their marketing.
Yeah.
But that's when it was owned by the guy who created the chain.
Yes. 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 Times have changed.
And as that man released the company to, corporate America,
Yeah.
shrinkflation happened. And now,
Yeah.
to me, Wendy's is one of the worst with
Oh, really?
regard to that. Like, I won't go anymore because it's gotten
Oh,
so
that's too
bad.
bad.
Perhaps they will. come back around. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
haven't been for a while just because I was so shocked that when that was their starting advertising,
Right.
say that we give you more,
Yeah.
that even that company over time succumbed.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, well, like I said, the people who maybe had started a company and did it out of a passion, perhaps, like they're gone, and now
Yeah.
it's just the bean counters who want to count more beans.
Well, so here's another direction for this. There's a big market for low quality, cheap items
Oh yes,
coming mostly from overseas, for
right,
us here in the United States.
right,
And there's a company called Temu is a really well-known one. I think there's another one
yes,
called
yes,
Shine.
yes.
And
I've
there's
heard of
more of than
these.
that. But, they had this advertising shop like a millionaire, you know,
Uh
and then
huh.
they would pull you in with all these very undercut price items
Yeah,
in order to kind of get market share.
yeah.
And now that they have it, they still sell very cheap items, but they're
Hmm.
very low quality,
Of course.
items,
Yeah.
clothing, decorative things. I mean, and I know a lot of people that actually use that. Why do you think people are willing to purchase things that are low quality because they're cheap?
So yeah. So first of all, things have just kind of gotten lower in quality in general through the years, I would say. Um, Plastic is a wonder material and it does a lot of amazing things really well, but we have really abused a plastic and how we apply it to everything. Um, I think applying plastic to food has been our largest folly in quite some time. Um, Food is something that people have to have every day, multiple times. And so wrapping every bit of food in plastic is just going to ensure that there's a ton of plastic trash. And we go through so much plastic stuff, it's insane. So I think the ease of use of fabrication of plastic goods has made things kind of all become plastic. Like it's cheap and it's durable and it's good for a lot of things, but it's really not good for everything. And we apply it to everything. And so I think there has been a degradation in just craftsmanship overall, where we're blasting molds with molten plastic instead of actually building things with our hands, you know? And so quality has just gone down as a result of mass production, I would say, as part of it. But certainly we design things to have like a maximum life, like, or we perhaps it's just that we can predict the maximum life of a product, and so we kind of make sure that all the parts die at about the same time if possible. And so that's kind of a cost saving measure, but most of these parts don't die at their expected date. Like, I mean, not everything does. Some things die early, and so then you have something you might have spent a lot of money on just becoming trash because it's been built to be built as cheaply as possible, and
Disposable,
exactly, disposable. It's not meant to be repaired. It's meant to be thrown out when
replaced.
you're done with
Yeah.
it. Yeah. And so there's a lot of things in just the business of building and making things that has changed, but that's not everything. I mean, you can make things out of plastic that last a really, really, really long time if you try to do a good job. But again, that's not cheap. It's a complex situation that's brought us here. It's not all capitalism, but it's, I think, largely capitalism. There's the brainwashing of the masses with advertising and people thinking they need all this crap that they just really don't need.
Well, that's what
And
I was going to say. Consumerism is part and parcel with capitalism.
yeah,
We want to continue to buy things for the dopamine hit of buying a thing, you
yeah, that's
know?
true.
we kind of had a mother who was very prone to that. You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
she didn't care that what she bought was, good or valuable or,
Right.
useful
It
to
was
her.
it was
If
new.
it was cute, yeah, if it was
Right. Right.
cute and it made her happy in the moment,
Yeah.
she'd spend money on it. So, yeah, that's something I think that maybe we've got to change culturally.
Yes, yes. And I think that's even maybe not entirely cultural even because I've seen that in my own daughter. How she's now 6 years old and she's at the age where she just wants to buy every little piece of crap that she sees in the store. Not because like it's something that she's gonna want to play with tomorrow or that's anything that's good. It's just that she just kind of wants it. She sees it. It looks cute. She wants to accumulate things. Like, I think that's a human thing, right? That desire to accumulate stuff.
Yeah, but is it all human nature or is it part conditioning? I mean, so it's women, especially women are the primary consumers of material goods. We buy the groceries, we buy clothing, we buy, for the most part.
Mm,
My husband, if he knows he needs a pair of jeans, he wants to go into the store, find a size, pick it up, and walk out the door. Right? He's
yeah.
not there to for the search, for the hunt,
Right, right. No, definitely not. Yes.
Whereas women do uh for whether this is a gender thing or not, it seems to be a very gender related thing, but we're the gatherers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Genetically, over the millennia, we've been the ones that went out and picked the berries and, gathered
Right.
the food and other things from the land while the men were off hunting, you know,
Yeah.
caribou
Yeah.
or whatever, right?
Right.
So I think there is something inherent in the human desire to gather,
Yeah.
and capitalism has taken full advantage of that.
Oh yes, 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 yes. I think the most successful endeavors business wise these days are all the ones that are just preying on those human conditions, right? The things that we have about us as just human beings that are very deeply ingrained and hard to overcome, right? And when you prey on these dopamine hits or whatever it is, like you're going to make a bunch of money because people have a hard time saying no because they're people, right?
Yeah.
And we do regulate away some of these things. We say you can't do this and this and this because it's predatory, but we really don't do a great job, I think, protecting people from themselves overall. But at the same time, I don't want to live in a nanny state. I don't think we need to protect people from
Right.
themselves.
On an individual basis, what can we do to be less affected by shrinkflation and enshittification? John, what do you think are some
Well,
good ideas?
so what you have to be able to do is you have to be willing to cut your losses, right? Like I started off with like an Apple iPhone, like most people did, because they were the kind of the first, touchscreen touchscreen smartphones anyway. And so they were very convenient and they were nice. But I realized right away that they're walled garden. Like I can only buy apps that work for that device, basically. I mean, the upgraded devices as well, but it's always got to be an Apple iPhone that can run this software and nothing else. And at this point, I was already kind of into open source software, and so I didn't feel like this was a great idea. And so I got away from Apple pretty much as quickly as I could and moved to Android, but even still, like I'm not super happy with Android because they've kind of just got the same thing going. But at least there's a lot more different vendors for the hardware, right? So you can pick, you can shop around, that kind of thing. So it's better overall, I would say. But basically, you just have to be able to willing to walk away from things, right? Like I
Yeah.
had that iPhone account with the apps that I had bought, and but my thought was, so I stay and the amount of money that I've sunk into this account just continues to grow, or I get out now and I cut my losses. And so that's what I decided to do. I was just going to cut my losses. I wasn't going to, okay, well, I'll change in like two more iPhone revisions or something like that because then
Right.
it's just never going to end. So you just got to cut your losses and move away from these things when you realize that this is what's happening to you, right?
Right.
So
Right.
you have to use capitalism against itself. You have to vote with your dollars. If something is crap, stop buying it. Find
Mm.
something else or go without. Because if you don't like it, continuing to give them the money for the thing that you don't like is just it's not self-preservation at this point. You're being tricked.
Yeah.
And just get over it. Accept it, cut your losses, get out of it. It's like a bad relationship. Just get out.
Yeah. There's also some other things that I would suggest.
Mhm.
And some of it is to get away from corporate America as much as you can.
Yeah.
So I really like the idea of putting more of my purchasing power into local businesses
Yes. Yes.
because again they're owned by the originators of those businesses who actually care about what people think, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And they may be really struggling to compete with these big corporations that are so
Yeah.
happy to cut their products or to
Yeah.
make them more expensive in ways that we don't see coming.
Yeah.
So I really like shopping locally.
Yeah.
I am a big thrifter.
Yeah.
I find there's so much stuff in the world,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
stuff, and so much of it is going into landfills, but a lot of it's
Yeah.
going into, just being given away to thrift stores or wherever, you know.
Yeah.
And I find that sometimes the quality of an older item, like a solid wood desk. I mean, I'm sitting here at a
Oh
desk
yeah.
right now that
Yeah.
is probably from the 1950s,
Yeah.
and it's solid, heavy wood. It will outlive me.
Yeah.
Same thing with most of the furniture in my house. It's
Yeah.
it's older furniture made of solid wood, and I can
Yeah.
spend less money buying an old used piece of furniture than
Yeah.
I do going out to IKEA and
Yeah. Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
buy the same
Oh
thing
yes.
that's
This
going to fall
particle
apart
board
in 2
and
years,
no,
right?
I hate
Yeah.
that stuff. It gets
I
wet
mean,
and it's ruined.
I've bought a lot of IKEA over the years,
I
don't
have
get me
too.
wrong,
I
but it
definitely have.
doesn't last.
I've still got some. No, it doesn't
Yeah.
last.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, because even when things are solid wood, they're rarely like better quality woods like oak or something.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah. Yeah.
fast growing soft woods.
Right. It's just white
So
pine.
yeah, even if you buy, new wood furniture these days, it's usually something that's very quickly regenerated with regard
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
quality. So,
It's still better though. It's still better.
well, yeah, solid wood's always going to be better than particle board.
Yeah. Just
Always.
always. Yeah.
Yeah. But the finishes on them are less well done. It used to be
Yeah.
go buy a piece of furniture at a furniture store and it had 20 layers of varnish on it so that it would
Yeah.
be durable and
Yeah.
last and look good
Yeah.
over the long haul.
Yeah.
And now things have 1 or 2 layers of a finish
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
as soon as you bump it, it's got scratches and scars and nicks and dings.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of enshittification as far as I'm concerned. The fact that
Yes. Yes. It
products
is.
are just so lower quality and have such less life in them. Now,
Yes. It's
granted,
terrible. Yeah.
if you want sort of the newest thing every
Yeah.
year, it's probably
You're
not
gonna
for
have a
you.
hard time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going to thrift markets and antique shops and that sort of thing is probably
Well,
not
but
going
so
to
what you
fit
can do
the
is
bill.
you can have your areas. So like for some people it's the new phone, right? They got to have a new phone
Mhm.
every year.
Right.
And I don't understand that myself. I think it's just a waste of money. But okay, fine. Let's say that this is what you want to do. This is how you're gonna spend your money. That's fine. Nobody's gonna complain about how you want to spend your money. But then other areas, like you don't buy a new desk every year, right?
Yes.
So just get a good one. And especially if you can get a good one for cheap, like if it's been used or something like that, all the better. You can
Yeah.
fix it up. You can strip the varnish off of it and repaint it or whatever you want to do, you know?
Yep.
and it
I've done a
looks
lot of that.
yeah, and it looks nice. It's custom. It's just how you want it to be. It's a one of a kind type of a thing, you know?
Yeah.
And it doesn't take that much work. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, you and I are a lot alike, so I agree with you on that. But,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people who, they want to move into a neighborhood where all the houses look the same.
Yeah.
I've never been able to do that. So that's maybe a difference between me and most of the rest of the world. This desire to have what your neighbor has and for
Yeah.
it to always be new and always to be current and in style.
Yeah, I think
And
that is maybe also just a human trait, but I think that is probably exacerbated through culture because, like, at least in the United States, and I can definitely see it in Japan as well, like, people are really into brand names, and when when the cool kids get the thing, everybody else wants the thing too, right? Like, that just happens. And it's pretty universal, I think, around the world. So maybe that's just a human thing. But you don't have to be that way. Like, you
no,
you can
and
just kind of like wake up one morning and say, maybe I don't want to be just like everybody else, and it's okay to be a little bit different, and then go live your best life, you know?
yeah. Yeah. And I think that's going to be the case with things like purchasing items that we start to become very disillusioned about is that
Yeah.
you can let these things go.
Oh
What
yeah.
item in your life can you not live without? That you're stuck always. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
a
Anything.
medication or something that you
Right, right,
require,
right.
but
Right. I think most things that you think, even when it's not true, you think, oh, I can't live without this. It's usually because it's really good, right? It's something
yeah,
that's really good. It's not something that's
yeah,
crap. And so when that thing starts to become crap, I think it's okay to say, time to move on. Time to
right.
try something
I
out,
agree. Yeah.
something new, maybe
And for
something
me,
local.
for me, there are exceptions to this rule in
Yeah.
that, for example, I was a Girl Scout as a kid. My children were Girl Scouts. I've always
Mhm.
supported the Girl Scouts.
Mhm.
Well, they are a very good example of shrinkflation in
Oh,
that their
yes.
little boxes of cookies have shrunk and shrunk and shrunk and shrunk, but they're
Yes.
good cookies. And to me, it's not about the cookie. Even though the cookies are delicious, it's
It's
about the
definitely,
donation.
it's
It's
also
supporting
about the
that group.
cookies.
Well, but it was a bonus to give a donation to a Girl Scout and get cookies in return, right?
Yeah, I just kind
So
of, for me, it
there's
was always
fewer
very
cookies.
transactionary. It was buying cookies.
Well, but now that there are other companies selling Girl Scout cookie knockoffs in the grocery store now. Like
Oh,
you
well,
can
good.
buy something that looks like a
The
Thin Mint, and you
Tagalongs.
can
Oh,
right. All of those are
that's
available
great.
now all the time year round at a grocery store at
Huh.
much cheaper than the Girl Scouts are able to sell them for.
Okay, well, in this
Right?
situation, then yes, if you're buying cookies from Girl Scouts, it's a donation.
It's a donation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I'm fine with that donation. I will always buy, even if they are down to 3 cookies a package. I will
Oh
give the
Lord.
Girl Scouts their $5 to $7 or whatever it is as a
Oh
donation for
boy.
those cookies.
Well, that's true. I mean, like, it's true. Going to a fancy pâtissier or something here in Japan, you could very easily pay $5 for a cookie or something, you know? I mean, you
Right.
go to you go to Starbucks and their white chocolate chip cookies are probably $5 or something at this point, right? I
Right.
don't know. I don't go, but
Well, I don't either. I make my coffee at home.
yeah.
Uh, and that's the thing, certainly a lot of this we're talking about in addition to electronics is things like fast food places or
Mm,
processed foods in particular is where we see this a
yes.
lot.
Oh
And
yes,
so,
terrible.
they're not good for us to begin with.
No. Like Pringles,
So,
for example, oh, they just the size of the chips in Japan actually shrank down. Like they
yeah.
had when Pringles first came to Japan, they were the regular full size like Pringle chips, and then they started
Mhm.
to like do the Japanese size Pringle chips, which were much smaller, same size can though, same
Right.
tube.
Well, and I've seen them where they've just made the can narrower but taller. So
Oh
then
yes,
again, that's preying on human ability to assess volume.
Yeah.
If you're changing volume in all directions,
Mhm.
the human brain can't quite always figure out which one is more and which one is less.
Yeah.
And they know that. And so
Mhm.
that's a very common way for shrinkflation to occur, is to change the packaging.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah, I think there's a lot of good ways to combat this. For me, it's mostly shopping locally,
Mhm.
buying secondhand, which I actually
Yeah.
prefer.
Yeah. I like to buy
Although I will
secondhand too.
say that is an IKEA shelf right there.
Yeah. That's a
um,
nice one.
but for the most part, just finding other ways to not give my money to big corporations when possible.
Yeah.
And then let things go when they're no longer of service. Oh,
Yes.
I wanted to bring up one other quick thing though, because we talked about before we got on that this is a pendulum swing. There
Yes.
does
Yes, it
come a
is.
point where companies lose so much market share to
Yep.
this shrinkflation, enshittification, inflation, all the
Yep.
things that are occurring,
Yep.
to where people do stop buying.
Yeah, they do.
And then they tend to reverse
Yeah.
their that
And
movement.
and often too little too late.
Often
Right?
it is too little too late because I haven't been back to Wendy's, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that is a thing. But at the same time, I sometimes wonder if these smaller portions are better for us, especially when it's all of these highly
Well, that may be
processed
true too,
foods.
yeah. That may be
At
true
least we're
too.
not getting as much of it. You're
But
going to have to buy
that's
more often.
that's just that's an unintended side effect. Like
It's an unintended side effect.
they're not trying to, hey, let's make everything more healthy by making it smaller.
Right.
That's not what
Your
they're thinking.
your brain still thinks I ate a whole can of chips, but the calorie
Yes.
count was 20% less.
Right, right, right. Oh man. I hope that late game capitalism doesn't end up saving us all.
I hope not.
But I would, I
Well,
would,
John.
I'd be happy if it did though. That'd be fine.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, John, for another interesting conversation. I
No
think that
problem.
individuals do need to decide for themselves,
Yes,
where
yes,
their drawing line is. Um,
yes. This is really what it boils down to. You just have to make your own decision. Like, this is my line in the sand, and if they cross
right,
it, then it's over. I'm gonna
right,
find somebody else.
right. And
It's like
typically,
a
there's going to be more competition for your dollar or your
exactly, yeah.
yen, as the
Yes,
case may
yes.
be.
And the more competition, the better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again.
Yeah,
We'll
no
catch
problem.
you next time.
All right. Good night.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this content, please hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications.